Welcome to this episode of the Strong Kind Podcast. This episode is with Mitchell Davis. If you've ever wanted to talk philosophy and lifting for 45 to 60 minutes, this episode's for you. Me and Mitch get deep into understanding philosophy and how it can be useful for helping us move forward in our current time. We also talk about things like certainty and uncertainty and how a lot of the fitness and health space just gets overwhelmed with people who are so sure about things that honestly we just don't know yet. And we may never know because humans are complex and creative and we somehow always manage to make more problems. But inside this episode there's a lot of utility for moving forward into uncertainty and enjoying life and enjoying training. We also just talked about training and youth sports and all sorts of good topics. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks so much for being here. You can follow Mitchell on Instagram at coach_M Davis. And thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Let's rock and roll. I want to thank you first and foremost. This book, dude, this is a great recommendation. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's a
I
fantastic read.
it's makes it really helped me. I love Ryan Holiday. And I love Stoicism as a philosophical, as a philosophy to actually, it's a workable philosophy, is I guess how I'll say it, right? But he
Yeah.
laid out like some of the just like the tenets of it that I felt were like really helpful. Uh, how do you go about selecting your books? Or is it just give me all of them? Because I think I have a lot of books obviously behind me like that I just freaking buy, but you go hard on what not book finder. What is it? Chief
Thrift book.
Thrifts books, yes. Yeah. You go hard in the paint.
Yeah, thrift books is dangerous because like the books I like are, you know, $4, $5, $6. And so you're like, oh, I'll just buy 30 of them instead of three regular price books. And they keep stacking up. But I mean, I'm sure you know this. Once people know that you enjoy reading, people love to give you recommendations. Uh,
Yeah.
and in a lot of books that you read, either, the author will mention another book outright or somewhere in a footnote or something, they're talking about an author
Yeah.
or philosopher. And oh, okay, I remember reading of him somewhere else. I want to go look. And then now you're on thrift books, and then oh, cool, this looks like something I might enjoy. So, uh, yeah, I mean, it's really just it just keeps filling itself back up. I don't have to search at all for books.
You know the book that people recommend to me all the time that I'm like, I don't want to freaking read that is Outlive by Peter Attia. And it's nothing against like Peter Attia and
Yeah.
Outlive, but like I just like I really think I'm not doing this to freaking live forever. Like I want to just make it to as long as I can with like good function. And honestly, I do want to like play and do stuff forever, but I think the like biohacking, like you're gonna like, live forever type of shit. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, I want to be doing fun stuff as long as I can, like, not put myself into this like protective bubble of, and I also like, Peter T is probably cool, but like, it just seems like everybody's like, yeah, like, so you should be doing, stability training twice a week. I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? Right? Like, that's what pisses me off. That's what gets my goat. So, anyway, that's the book that gets recommended to me a lot.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of coaches talk about it. My buddy Will said, yeah, I wouldn't like it. He said there's a couple of good nuggets, but beyond that, um, nothing worthwhile. I've started to get first. I think that this whole outlive thing, this Brian Johnson with his live to 100 or whatever, it's a marketing scheme, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, I feel so bad. Not in a like you're an idiot way. I feel so bad for people who buy into this because it doesn't matter if you're living longer if you're not actually present with your life.
Yeah.
If I'm spending all of my time to live longer, you've extended years of just nonsense. And
Yeah.
so why not just focus on enjoying the life? Now, I'm sure there's people out there that are going to be mad at me and say, "Oh, that's how people wind up dying early. Okay, maybe change what you find enjoyable. Go train a little bit, spend time with family,
Yeah.
just be in the moment. So right back to Stoicism. Look at that. Didn't take us
Dude,
far.
I bet it didn't take us very long at all. Well, and like so, and I think that's part of it. And I was just like, so I wasn't too far behind. Obviously, just started on time, quote unquote. But I was had a client in the garage, and she's a woman who's in her 50s, and like she has learned to enjoy training, right? And so much of it was just like she's asked me like, people talk about like these like a lower body and upper body and like does that matter? And I'm like, no. Like it kind of doesn't. Like because she likes to do like Monday, Wednesday is like those are my weight days, and then Tuesday, Thursday are like cardio type days. I'm like, that's actually beautiful, and I'm glad that you've fallen into enjoying it like that. And then, I always just have this triangle of like, okay, we have to have principles, like physiologic principles. We have to have progression, like, because like Pilates is great, but a certain point of it, like, you're not going to make progression in a class anymore. And like, that's fine. If you still enjoy going to that class, that's great. But like, figuring out ways to make progress or quote unquote maintain is important. And then it's like your preferences. And if we find some working of that triangle, we're in a good spot. And she's like, oh, that's helpful. But it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, Instagram is people doing cool shit all the time, blast in your face with it. I'm reading this. Like, this is, Steve Magnus. I do like Steve Magnus a lot.
Never, never heard of it.
He, but like, he's kind of a one of his books is Do Hard Things, right? And, but it's like, yeah, we and we're gonna talk about youth sports because I want to talk to you about this too. But like we have turned into this fantasy disillusioned society, and it's like so much of life when it's just simple is really enjoyable, but you have to accept that like a simple life can be enjoyable, right?
Oh yeah, big time. Probably far more enjoyable than anything that we could imagine. Less stuff, less cognitive bandwidth. Um, social media is a son of a bitch because if it wasn't for social media, you and I wouldn't be friends. I
Yeah.
have friends not just around the country, but I met a dude from Germany. He's a good buddy of mine. Like we get to chat all the time. Never
Yeah.
would have had that without the invention of Instagram. But on the other side, it's amazing the algorithm how quickly it just turns to nastiness. Um, and it's just the comment section is just people being certain of their way. And there's something inside, I think all of us, especially coaches or practitioners or whoever, it's like, hey, that's wrong. That's misinformation. I could correct that. But also I think inside of us it's like, "Nah, I'm going to show this person." And
Yeah.
now you're just part of it. And now you're sucked away from being present and actually enjoying life. Um, so yeah, it's hard. I'm recently if I find myself too far consumed on the negative shit, I just have to delete the app for about a week, get away from it, and just let myself cool down because it sucks you into the nonsense so quickly, when I could be doing far more productive stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's in like my rationalization is like, I mean, my business is completely dependent on, not completely dependent on Instagram, but a lot of it is dependent on Instagram, and it's awesome. But like if I and I'm like I saw something like a little bit ago that like Mr. Beast was like, yeah, my mental health sucks because like I'm choosing to do this shit that screws with my mental health, right? And he's like, but that's also like why I'm successful. And I think I've like because like it's Friday. I every Friday I have a headache. Like I have like my brain is like, all right, it's the end of this fucking week, man. Let's get this over with. Like go to train and go get some ice cream, and and it's because like I'm cognitively thinking some of it about stuff that I can't control. Some of it is that I say I'm at screens more than I probably would like to be, or not. It's my I choose it, right? But and I get it. And like it's not every week like that, but I like definitely know. And like getting outside. Last night I grilled burgers and I just like looked like this for like 10 minutes and I was like, this is so nice. Like this I get it now, right?
Yeah.
Um what is all right, so there's a few things I reached out to you like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, this is a safe space, but like I'm like, I'm just so tired of the hormone chasing crowd. Right. Like I'm fixing my hormones, right? I'm just even just like there's a certain amount of like being that you just have to accept. Like that like I just the root cause of a lot of our suffering is that we are choosing to kind of suffer, right? It's very easy to trick ourselves into thinking that something's not right and that life should be better and that there's a problem with me. And then we go searching for all these ways to fix it that are like not, they come from outside of ourselves. And I think me and you pretty much look at it like most of the shit is like an internal thing that we need to work on. What's your thoughts on that? And you gave me a good diatribe, but I can't remember exactly what it was, but it helped me in that moment.
Uh, first, fear is very akin to excitability.
Yeah.
And and humans are by nature kind of thrill seekers. And when we are completely devoid of actual bad shit,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna go seek it. And so, yeah, there's these scary monsters out there that we can't see. We don't actually know what they are. But the fact that we don't actually know what it is, it's scary itself. And so now I have this big thing looming over me that it's my hormones, it's my age, it's my metabolism, it's food dyes. The list goes on and on and on and on. And so, yeah, this is why people are okay with being angry and being constantly worried. It's excitable.
Yeah.
Um, and beyond that, I think from an evolutionary perspective, we need to look out for this stuff.
Yeah.
And so if I'm, hiking through the wilderness looking for berries and I hear a twig snap, well, I run away. If I'm wrong in thinking there's danger, that's not good because I wasted valuable energy.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong and I don't run away and there was danger, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're looking for patterns, and in a world where there's not a whole lot of patterns for scary shit right now. We're gonna make them up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, um, humans aren't. They're not looking for answers. They're looking for validation. And so, me trying to to explain to someone, look, it ain't what you think it is. They don't want to hear that,
Yeah.
and that's what makes the charlatans online so successful is because they're not there to give you answers, they're there to validate you, and they validate you through a tremendous amount of charisma is going to trump evidence-based practitioners every single time because
Yeah.
now I can make the person across from me feel good, feel heard.
Yep.
If you go, my dad's a clinical psychologist, and he remembers early on when he was younger, he went to some seminar, and he said it was basically, he doesn't remember what the movement was, but it was a cult movement.
Yeah.
He said you'd walk into these places, and the auditorium would be packed. And he said if you listen to how the person talks on stage, and it's the same thing today, someone asks a question, they're not addressing the question. They'll start with, someone, asks a question about hormones. The first thing that's going to come out of their mouth is how intuitive you are. Man,
Hmm.
how old are you? Most people your age wouldn't think like that. That's brilliant. I've
Hmm.
often wondered that myself. Now all of a sudden I'm hooked.
Right.
Whatever comes out of their mouth, this person is a genius because they validated what I already believe. And now I'm locked in. It is so hard to change someone's name, or excuse me, to change someone's opinion after that interaction.
Yeah.
And so it, I'm not a nihilist here saying there's no point that guys like you and I shouldn't try to continue to do good, but it is such a bastard of a mountain
Yeah.
because we're going up against charisma.
Yeah. Well, and I think there is some amount of acceptance in the fact that even with a bunch of literature on a topic, there are things that are hard to explain, or that studies can suck, right? Because that's often people will like that study sucked. I'm like, yeah, well, and that's why you have to look at like 100 studies. And like, do I want to look at 100 studies? No. And that's where also there's an intersection of like, time and experimentation and just like quote unquote common sense in conjunction with like me and like a bench pressing is a good exercise. Like I don't need 50 like studies to validate that, right? But one person, one 18-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid who hurt their shoulder bench pressing will go find evidence to be like, no, bench pressing is really not functional for you. Right. And like, and it's like, okay, so I'm not going to change your mind. So I don't care. And you're not going to change my mind. So let's just move forward. Right. Um, and then you hope that that kid just figures out that, oh, yeah, like I just put way too much stress on my shoulder. And that's what was the problem. Right. That's a beautiful, I think about that all the time. And one of the things I think about like really becoming an adult is like there is this space of validation that I think we all need, right? And I think really becoming an adult is needing less and less of that space, right? Needing less and really what the validation should just be is like I see you as a person, right? And I can treat you kindly as opposed to like I'm gonna be honest, like just grief never ends. Like, something bad happens to you, a family member dies, like you're going to experience that over and over again and throughout your lifespan, right? But like your ability to you grieving the person
Holy shit.
did you
Where is it?
yeah, it's on the roof.
Let me go grab that.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Mitchell, if you're not watching the video, Mitchell's outside and his umbrella his outside umbrella just blew away from him. He's grabbing it off the roof. I think he's back.
That is hysterical.
That is wild. He must have got a good gust there.
What?
He must have got a good gust.
Yeah, man, that's never happened before. You must be speaking something into existence because
Well, I mean,
wow.
what I was getting at is like at some point, like you should feel what you feel, and it's okay, right? Like grieving the loss of a family member or hard stuff. That's part of being a human, right? And from a neuroplastic change, I actually like, I didn't really realize it, but it's like, yeah, you have like neuronal connections associated with every person like and love. And like those things are changing because of your relationship changing, right? And it's
Yeah.
taxing on you. But like the ability to move through that need for validation quicker and quicker as I think about part of like being an adult. Like that's one of the things of having my son is like there's parts of me that like I love my son. There's parts of me that don't want to hold him for 10 minutes because I want to go do something else, right? So I'm like navigating that and I'm like learning to be, like a little less selfish and a little less like validated in like or like, hey, you shouldn't have to hold your son. Like, like you move through that quicker and you're like, hey, you know what? This is the situation right now. And I think that's what so much of it is too, is just like you got to be cognitively flexible in our day and age. And so many people you're just jerked. And that's why I like this book. He says he says jerked about like 90 times, which I think is like a stoic way of saying like, you're just being pulled every which way and it's causing you suffering. Right. And that's really what we're doing here. At the end of the day, man, like you have to suffer, I think, but it's like suffering well, right? It's like understanding that suffering is part of life and you can do it well, or you can choose to suffer in a way and choose is hard, but it's true. You can choose to suffer in a way that's like just it's fucking ruining your life. And I want you to say something, and then I got a point because somebody entered my DMs like a week ago, and it's like, dude, you're suffering hard and you're
Yeah.
in your own thing. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Uh life life is suffering, right? We can't avoid it. And it's easy for you and I to sit here and talk about it and say, yeah, okay, just enjoy the ride, enjoy the suffering. Sisyphus was happy.
Yeah.
That's really hard for us to do. And this is why we turn to and please understand, I am not knocking these things. I think when used in an appropriate way, religion, politics, identity is such a beautiful thing. But we have pushed these things into the realm of certainty, and nothing is certain.
Mm.
The only thing that's certain is you're going to die, and chances are sooner than you'd like.
Yeah.
But we take religion, for example. One of the things I'm very fascinated right now, and I'm reading a lot of books on Christianity and atheism. It's fascinating to me. Um, we have taken something that is supposed to be an intimate journey of self-betterment and of empathy. Above all, it is just empathy. And we have morphed it into this idea that I absolutely know my one religion out of the thousands is the only right one.
Yeah.
Now I don't have empathy. So now I'm distant from others.
Yeah.
And why are we anxious?
Yeah.
My belief is because we inherently know there is a chance I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I have found tremendous peace in a lot of things, my job, my life, my relationships, when I am just able to sit back and say, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And now, what separates nihilism from absurdism is nihilism says, I have no idea and therefore I give up.
Yeah.
Absurdism says, I have no idea, I never will, but I'm still going to keep going. And
Yeah.
that's what makes me and this life so absurd, but so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I like absurdism. I think you just put it very, very well. And like because that's the thing, it's like even stoicism versus was it cynics? Yeah, I think it was stoicism versus cynicism, as a philosophy. Like
Keep
uh
going. I'm gonna wrap this up because it's gonna blow away again. But keep going.
you're good. I mean, and that's part of it. This is why I think me and you uh lean into philosophical. I think people need to develop their own philosophies, and I think they need to understand philosophy, like try to understand philosophy. I don't want to claim to understand philosophy super well. Uh, I also think the intellectualization of all this stuff is problematic because, yeah, it really boils down to what you just said. People think they're certain about what something means. You know, I had somebody say, like, that's not that's like what you were saying wasn't like stoicism. I'm like, are you sure? Like, you do, like, they were like this saying it was there, and like that's the hard part about everything is the more people go down the rabbit hole of their thing, the more certain they seem to think they are until a certain point where they break, right? Or like you mentioned, you just stay really, really anxious because like, you know the promise of so much of all this stuff is that you're not going to suffer anymore. But when you continue to suffer despite that, you're like, well, what the hell's going on? Right? And it's like, no. And you've read, I think me and you've talked about, have you read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse?
I don't think so. I probably have it.
Yeah, you should go find it. I'm sure you have it because
Okay.
it's one of those, it's like, it's like 120 pages, but it's all about like it's Hinduism, but it's about the fact that wisdom cannot be learned. Wisdom is experienced, right? And so me and you, like, we have similar philosophical, like, learning to enjoy the day-to-day struggles and challenges of life is part of navigating suffering well. And me and you have come to those conclusions via different experiences. So we have different wisdom on the subject, right? And
Yeah.
we may not know each other's exact flavor of that. And that's okay, but I can still have empathy for like your experience with like sobriety, right? Um like and my experience with, and this is the other thing, like your concoction, your cocktail of depression is different than my cocktail of depression, right?
Yeah.
And they may be similar. And you should read, I'll give you a book to read, and maybe you will, How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Feldman Barrett. Uh, it's a newer book. Maybe I'll send it to you. It's also cheap though. It's only like $9.99. It's was crazy because it's new and cheap. But basically the whole premise of that book is, we think we've said that, happiness is the same for me and you, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. Like what makes people happy is different and varied, right?
Yeah.
And what makes people sad is different and varied. And so it's not that there's like a fingerprint for these emotions. It's that humans, based on their knowledge or their learned behaviors and attitudes, create them. And
Right.
we create our experience, and that's also, the brain is a prediction machine, right? So we're just creating, like, this is probably what gives me why I think, like, I don't believe in manifestation. I believe in like action, right? But if, for a kid that's like never made a 225-pound squat, right? Like, and he's struggled, he's failed a couple times. Like, if he keeps predicting that he's gonna fail it, he's gonna fail it, right? But there has to be this moment of choice oriented around, like, okay, I've done 185 for 10. I've done 205 for 5. Okay, it's 2 plates. I can do this. There has to be this choice that he's going to try, right? And if you say, I'm going to give it my best effort, then you give your brain an opportunity to learn something new. And that's like what that whole book's about, is like, basically we're creating our future based on what we believe we can do. To some extent, there's limitations, right? But I think so many people, and I think you would agree with this, they just get rooted in, well, my life's been crappy up to this point, not gonna get better, right? And or I'm just gonna keep repeat. And dude, lessons will be repeated until they're learned, right? And I think that's one of those things I think about a lot too.
Yeah, I see that a lot in my younger athletes is they're not doom and gloom yet. They're not old enough to be doom and gloom.
Yeah,
But we're seeing this trend where again it's certainty, and I believe that certainty is taught in us at a young age. You start to get a report card, and we can argue if it's grades or dolphins and starfish, whatever it is, but we're still shown you're being rated based on your correctness, and correctness then breeds certainty. And so I see this in athletes all the time where because sport is not guaranteed, because I am going up against another human being or another team, we now put up defense mechanisms. And I hear this constantly is they'll say it outright. I don't care if we lose. Yet after that final game of the season, and they're all in tears, which is great because that meant you cared,
yeah,
you did care. But if
yeah,
I can outwardly express to the world, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, well, now what I'm saying and what I actually believe are two totally different things. And so it's certainty, it's correctness. We're not teaching people to enjoy learning. We're
yeah,
teaching people you learn in order to be correct, and then with your correctness comes certainty, and then life beats us around because it's not certain. And then now here's our existential crisis. And so
yeah,
yeah, I was just joking around with my dad the other day. I think one of the dumbest things that whoever decided this is to me is not a smart person when the term don't talk about politics and religion at the dinner table. I think that's so dumb because
mm,
that is the safest place your child is ever going to be able to talk about these things.
yeah,
And so when your child goes into the real world and replace religion and politics with exercise, with whatever,
yeah,
don't know how to communicate. Now we shift from open discourse into just argument. And now
yeah,
it's not two people searching for the truth together. It is both parties searching for who is correct. As my cat walks in front of my screen. Outside, I've got my umbrella blowing. Inside, I've got my cats fighting on
yeah,
the
dude. The
countertop.
universe. This is
Life,
just
life is
too.
suffering, bro.
This is just too enlightened. Like, the Illuminati doesn't want these types of conversations to
Yeah,
happen. Dude,
exactly.
it's also, I've been thinking a lot about just conspiracy theories too, and like so I had Ben Cormack on yesterday, and I posted that. So Ben's a musculoskeletal practitioner. I think he's core kinetic. You probably follow him, maybe you don't, but He's like a no BS guy. He's him and Adam Meekins run a business together, or like a
Okay, yeah.
educational. So super cool guy. He's out of the UK, and I kind of asked him like, why are these postural, why are things like posture causing pain and like core stability? Why are these such prevailing narratives? And it's like because they seem like they're true, right? They seem like they make sense on the surface of things, right? But then once you start to actually understand like complex systems and or even just dive into those things and you understand the variability in presentation of people, right? And then you see more about like you just start to understand more about stress physiology and stuff like that. Like they just start to get chinks in the armor, right? And the other part is like sometimes like it works. You just tell somebody to like, hey, adjust your posture right there, and they feel it better. It's like it just gives them a different input, right? Or they get a new chair at work, and some of that's maybe that they just like their new chair, right? But like conspiracy theories, like who doesn't want to like just we love my other big theory is that we just don't make it out of high school, right? And all conspiracy theories are I was like, who hey, you know that Jimmy kissed Mrs. Norris? Like, never happened, right? But like somebody starts a rumor and it's like, oh, really? And then but like it's the same thing, it's like that in the 60s they
Yeah.
were, testing psilocybin on, soldiers and like, and like maybe it's true. I don't know. But it's an easy-ish. It's an conspiracy theories are easier explanations than the reality. And so we like latch onto them, right? And it's the same, it's so much with so much of this stuff. And we're just really good at conveying these stories over and over again. Um, like somebody was up in arms over like there being like a litter box in a elementary school because somebody was claiming to be a furry. And I'm like, do we even know if this is true? Like, this is just a thing on a random Daily UK Mail or what Daily Mail's website, right? But that's how stuff spreads, right? Is sensationalism, or even if it's true, it's like, well, does it really matter? Who cares, right? But you mentioned kids. You've been coaching for how long now at the high school you're at?
This one, I'm in my 5th year. Overall, 15 years with high schoolers, 16 years overall. Had a bit of a lapse there between schools, but for a
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, a long time. Over those years, like, do you feel like there's been a shift, like in anything? Like, did the kids seem different? Does the environment seem different? Like, what are those big shifts, and how do you think they're causing effects that people don't think about?
Um, Kids aren't lazier. That just needs to go away. And if they are, it's our fault as
Yeah,
adults, not the
yeah,
kids. Um, it's not a participation trophy world that we think it is, at least by high school. Like because real life smacks you around, and
yeah,
you're a sophomore on a football team, and you go 4-6, and you don't make it to playoffs, and no one hands you a trophy. These kids aren't just leaving as sophomores; they're coming back. Um, what I do see is that kids have far less attention span, and kids do not know how to communicate with one another when it comes to anything that could perceived as negative. And so we can, it's leadership maybe. Um, but again, none of what I'm saying is the children's fault. It's not like these 14 to 18-year-old boys. It's like, how dare you don't know how to, communicate,
yeah,
it's the environment in which they're being brought up, and that environment, unfortunately, is phones and is video games. Um, and as adults, we all say it all the time how terrible they are. But um, to me, I'm looking at it from the lens of, okay, why is it that these kids can connect with me? I'll have kids all the time ask me what books I'm reading. Just yesterday, kid uh, stayed after. He said, "Coach, give me some book recommendations because I've noticed I've been on my phone too much recently." That was a message that I've been preaching for a while now. So this kid's hearing what I'm saying. So
hmm
why is it that these kids are having a hard time communicate with each other? Why is it that it's when they're in a safe environment even, and we're talking about like, all right, like let's have some hard conversations between you guys. It's radio silence. And so it's easy. It's very easy to say whatever you want behind a screen, even if
Yeah.
you're attached to it. How many
Yeah.
people are so willing to go online and just rip someone?
Tell people that they train old people and that they have a shitty physique.
Yeah. I mean, with that guy, my bet is that guy, if he's walking down your neighborhood and if he thinks you've got a shitty physique and only train old people, I am one to bet that he's probably not going to shout that into your garage.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
so
You
so
know,
I
if he did, I'd be giving him props. You know, all right,
yeah, good for you.
take some gumption.
So so it's all interconnected, right? Like
Yeah,
we need to teach our kids at a very young age how to have conversations. What did the philosophers do? I mean, they spent their days essentially what we would call arguing,
yeah,
and so they learned it. Being able to argue is you can be good or bad at it. Good does not mean you win the argument. That is not what I'm saying. It is learning to stay centered and present. I see this online all the time is how quickly the argument changes direction. And okay, but
yeah,
you're not arguing the main point. Bring yourself back in. Remain present on the topic at hand. We need more people who are interested in learning how to argue and
mhm,
not how to win an argument. There's a
yeah,
big difference there.
yeah. Well, and like argument is kind of like, I mean, if you're not in court or in even then it's like, probably in court, but like in like politics, right? Like it's an ongoing game, right? Like it's an infinite game. You're trying to, yeah. You said something, move towards truth a little bit ago, and I think like, yeah, moving towards truth, but it's like it's really just kind of moving forward, like into action, right? Like and that's like the thing that I think we get lost in the sauce of like rightness and perfectness, which perfection, dude, another one. Like perfection is such this it's been around for since the beginning of time, is like, well, there's some perfect form out there, and it's like if in humans what we do is as a form of protection, we're like, well, if I just like make everything perfect, um like things will be good, right? But it's it's just continuously playing this game of learning, which is I think why it's fun to come back to it, because it's like, dude, it's just kind of the same thing. It's like, how do you learn to live in a way that is in alignment with the person you are wanting to become, which, like, again, I think you just posted on like somebody I saw, like somebody would call this a REIT, right? I think it was maybe an Alec Blennis post or whatever, right? And so this is why it's important to be a model for behavior as opposed to just saying XYZ, right? Because your kids see you reading books, right? They see you engaging in behaviors that like they want to be like, and it's not because you're perfect. Like, and that's one of the things I also think about is just acknowledging, like, I'm so far from perfect and I don't care, because the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to just honestly be kind and move through life. And like, dude, we're gonna go get Dairy Queen in a little while.
Oh
That's
yeah.
all I care about. Like I want to enjoy those little things. Yes, do I want to have enough money to travel and do these things? Yes, of course. But like, I don't need to beat anybody to do most of the things in my life at this stage, right? And if I do want to beat people, we're doing it in like this space that's like we both agreed to participate. And we're just trying to get better at it, right? Whereas like what the online space is like trying to win something that you're not gonna win. And that's what I think is like really hard for these kids to understand, because like so much of it just doesn't fucking matter, right?
Yeah, being perfect also just sounds so boring
Yeah.
because there's just no curveballs.
That's what I've always said about heaven. It's like, why do I want to go somewhere where it's just like, what's gonna be in? Oh no, like, and I know that's a flawed view. It's not maybe a flawed view, but I'm like, why do I want to be? It's anyway. We don't need to go too far down those holes. This is the strength and conditioning podcast.
You lose half your followers, you gain a bunch more.
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah. No, I mean, so all. I'll give you the opposite perspective of that, of heaven. We see heaven as perfect,
Yeah.
but we see it as perfect in our narrow lens.
Yeah.
So we say, okay, in heaven, the lion lays with the lamb, but that is because we find a lion ripping a lamb to shreds rather grotesque.
Mm-hmm.
But in nature, there really is no grotesqueness,
Yeah.
right?
It's just
And
nature.
so heaven, for all we know, could just be the lion devouring the lamb.
Yeah.
You are picturing something as perfect. We
Yeah.
all have this idea of perfect, and a part of us wants it. But now let's remove ourselves from heaven. We're here on earth, and then you've obtained that perfectness. I mean, how long does that joy last? Now we're moving on to the next thing because
Yeah.
it's boring,
Yeah.
boring, and we need to collectively, I'm sure you've seen this post before. Someone's like, what happens if we all just started ignoring these influencers, like collectively? What would
Yeah.
happen to them?
Yeah.
It's a fun theory to think about, right? Ignore the people who are preaching perfection, never dying, never suffering. Everything is squared away. I have my 6 hour morning routine. Um, One of the easiest things you can do to make your life exponentially better is to ignore anyone telling you how to make your life exponentially better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fun paradox, right?
Yeah. It's a giant paradox. And I think like even just how I like coach people anymore, I've just really shifted to be like, my role is really just to be like, what do you want to do? And how do we create this plan to do it? And how do we just take action that makes you feel good? Like that, feeling good is just a byproduct of the action you're taking or the rest you're taking, right? Which, cause like, and that's like, or like, dude, humans are wild. It's like people feel guilty about resting. And it's like when you give them permission to rest, they're like, oh, that was great. I feel great. And like, yeah, we do need people outside of ourselves to help us through these things, right? And but like I don't have a freaking like perfect system, right? Like you mean you talked about just the program that you were running with the kids. So this is a good segue to just like coaching but the program you were running with your kids before last fall was like you're like it's super simple, right? It's and like and then I saw you on Austin Yoakum's podcast and like bicep curls are super functional and I didn't really listen to that whole podcast. I'm assuming it was because if you get somebody doing if they get in the gym to do bicep curls then they start doing a bunch of other stuff. I think that was your argument the last time me and you talked about it,
It's
but
get out your own way, right? Like
yeah, like
stop giving them what they need, give them what they want, and then
give them
they'll
what
do what they need, right?
exactly right. Which is also like that's why I appreciate like Yoakum. Like that guy's gym is just it, like seems like an adult playground, which is like, dude, I love to train on my own and I don't mind it. But if it was like an adult play, if I was like with like 15 other dudes and we played like dodgeball for 30 minutes and then we went and lifted, it's like how fun would that be, right? And you'd probably get great results, right? Um, but like everything has turned into somebody posted I can't remember this but it's like it has become astronomically harder to actually train people in our day and age even despite all the information because maybe it's not astronomically different. I don't know if I agree with that, but like there's so many options. I literally just talked to somebody this morning. It's like he's like I just I like what we're doing but like I also like feel like there's other things I could be doing, right? And I'm like okay, so how do we navigate that?
Yeah, there's so much other stuff you could be doing, but you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like, and you have to accept that, right? You have to accept that right now, like, even if you're a CrossFitter, like, you may be doing a bunch of different stuff, but like, there's still limited bandwidth and you still have to listen to your ability. And I also think there's a belief in what you're doing, because if there's a belief in what you're doing and you're enjoying it, you can handle a lot, right? But you still got to put your head down. But like, the hard part is when you let it sink in between your ears that like there's something else I need to be doing and what is it, right? And that's like because then you're just you're there's a mismatch all the time between what you're doing and what you feel like you should be doing, and that doesn't necessarily feel good. And that maybe can be beneficial and it can maybe not beneficial, right?
People we we have just ripped fun out of everything
Yeah.
for the sake of um, perfection or for the sake of discipline even. Oh man, people are going to disagree with me on this, but we turn to these influencers. Let's use the biggest one on discipline is David Goggins. He's constantly not just telling us, he's yelling at us to be more disciplined. My question is what if you took David away from something he inherently loves, which is running. And
Yeah.
we made him do the polar opposite, but it was still fitness, but he had no enjoyment in it. Let's
Yeah.
say he hates bike riding.
Yeah.
You're now going to train for a 100-mile bike race. Is he as disciplined? I would say chances are no. When I say that fun must be first, people get mad and say that's not how you create discipline. I'm disciplined in my weight room and I do things that I don't always enjoy because enjoyment permeates everything. And
Yeah.
so these kids who walk into a weight room and you're a drill instructor. You're yelling at them for everything. You're saying bicep curls don't win football games, and so therefore we're not going to do them. They're bored out of their mind. So now when shit gets really hard, they have nothing keeping them disciplined. And so you look at social media where there's so much out there. What are people gravitating towards? It's novelty, but that novelty is fun. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that fun shouldn't be the pinnacle of one's training. It's what will drive them forward. And then, yes, there's periods of training, especially if you have a super specific goal that aren't going to be fun, but that fun is like this fog
Yeah.
around you that, hey, I know these next couple weeks I really have to focus in, but bigger picture, it's enjoyment. And
Yeah.
we've said F it. We said you should, it's not about enjoyment. It's
Yeah.
about putting your nose down and grinding. And then that
Yeah.
person looks on their phone and every influencer out there is having fun doing nonsense. And they say, well, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because like if there is a God, like I think he wanted life to be enjoyable, right? Not purely pleasure, not purely pain. And like like those two things are part of the cocktail of enjoyment. Because dude, working out hard is hard, but it's also like extremely, Arnold saying every day I'm coming, like like there is that type of thing, right? Like, and it's funny too because like Navy SEAL, like I've read a lot of Navy SEAL lore like as a kid because they're badasses, dude. They're it's so cool. Like, a lot of little boys grow. I grew up wanting to be like a commando, quote unquote, right? And the guys who make it through that training, they are having fun in the suck of that training. Yes, it sucks, right? Yes, it's discipline, but like it's the dudes who are always like singing on the beach, like literally going crazy to just keep them. Like one night when I was playing rugby in college, like we had our coach was from South Africa and he was a great guy. He's also just kind of an idiot. And for one, like we were 20-year-old kids and this was a voluntary, like, it was a club, but there has to be some discipline and whatnot. But like he's like, we're doing shit today and we're gonna go run it for 30 minutes and we like have to do sprints and like we get like 10 minutes in and I'm like I just like start like, and I'm not this type of guy. I'm like, I start cussing him out, and like other guys start cussing him out, and then we started singing songs, and then it got really fun, and he's laughing, and
Yeah.
it's like, and that's the type of shit that doesn't happen if you're not like willing to have in fun and enjoy the process and be a little bit fucking absurd, right? Like that's what absurdity really is to me, right? So, and like, dude, like you know, I will push back against like David Goggins would probably be like, I gotta run the bike because how I'm gonna do the boats now. He'd figure it out. But like the whole thing with Goggins as a character versus Goggins as a man, and I think this is the biggest distinction people need to understand is like these people are fucking playing characters. I
Yeah.
love Jocko. Jocko probably off camera is pretty close to Jocko on camera, but he's still being a character on camera a little bit, right? I think Goggins is probably off camera, still a lot like what he's on camera. But like you're seeing a 30-second clip of him going, "Stay hard, keep going, like fuck your feelings," and like at some point he's either really miserable or he's just playing a character that's making him money, right? And like I kind of can't. So one of my buddies is like, because I think Theo Vaughn, you know who Theo Vaughn is? I think Theo Vaughn's hilarious. But my buddy's like, yeah, he's kind of become a grifter. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of true. Because he just has people on that he knows are gonna get clicks. And he's engaging in topics that like
Yeah.
Theo, like, come on, man. Like I don't know, and I'm not trying to be like it's okay to engage in these topics, but like that's what happens to these things. They feed forward and you can make a lot of money, you can get clicks and XYZ, you get attention. And then but you're also like you gotta accept the uncertainty of it. And I think probably Theo probably accepts that he's an idiot more so than a lot of people, but he brings on people who are certain, right? And that's where you corrupt the quote unquote the message a little bit. Um, I ranted, but I want to know you're what are you training for right now? Are you running? I mean, you're doing it all, but are you doing a marathon soon?
Not a marathon, half marathon.
Oh, nice.
Signed up for the Philly half here, end of November. So, it would be cool to pull 3 times body weight on a deadlift and then turn around and go run a sub 90 half marathon. Both are very achievable. Well, it's all relative, right? For some of us, we're saying no way. For some people, they're telling me I'm a coward because that's way too easy. But for me, it's right in that sweet spot where definitely have to be, smart with what I'm doing. What I like about it is, okay, um, you got to run certain amount of mileage at certain intensity for where I'm at. And then it's the question of body weight, right? And so if I put on a few more pounds, then the deadlift bar is heavier. And so it's you're going back to the high school wrestling days of okay,
Yeah.
can I cheat the system a little bit and can I just lose a little bit of weight over X amount of months? And so to me, that's kind of fun, right? Because you get to be your own little scientist. It's not just lifting and running, it's okay, this combination makes things interesting because there's many ways that I can go about it.
Yeah.
And so kind of figuring out like, all right, how much weight do I want to lose? Do I want to lose weight? And okay, do I want to put in more mileage and make the run a little easier? But now anytime I go to pick a bar off the floor, I feel like death. So
Yeah.
that's been fun. So far, I was supposed to give a half marathon a shot here the other weekend, but we had a wedding to go to, and it was, do I want to go run or go celebrate friends? So that was an easy choice. Or maybe I just, subconsciously knew I wasn't ready, whichever one. That's where I'm at now. November is what, 29 weeks away. I got
Yeah,
some
the game.
time yet,
Yeah.
so I don't have to focus too much on it right now. So run, lift. Right now, I'm just kind of, we just wrapped up the semester where I'm teaching at college. So that was also another thing. It's like, you're Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'm driving, I'm teaching, I'm driving back, I'm right at Warwick, and it's like most of my day is shot. And so now summertime for me, anyone who out there who's a high school or college teacher, that like okay, summertime I can gain back a little bit. So maybe that's where start to focus in a little bit on what I'm actually pushing towards.
Yeah. What's so this is one of the questions that just goes through my mind all the time. How much do you train in a week?
At one, I think it depends on what you call training,
Good
and
point.
two, it depends on the week. I like to read, and one of the things that I know is that I can be lazy, and so how do I force myself to read 1 hour a day? Is I sit on my Concept 2 bike.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I get that bike ever into zone two. So like zone one stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's 5 hours a week of training, but I'm
Yeah.
really just sitting on a bike and pedaling. And
Yeah.
it keeps me motivated to continue to learn.
Yeah.
Um, so right there is 5 hours, or maybe it's not. My actual training, um, 3 to 4 days of weight training a week. Some weeks I completely miss. And then, 2 to 4 days of running. Some days I completely miss. I think last week I worked out once and I don't think I ran. So,
So, like you're pretty like so I'm like a giant asshole. I also like have so one of my things is like I'm almost just like I have so much freedom. Like I have to work a lot. And like that's where a lot of my like cognitive bandwidth like cuz it's like if I had a set schedule, I think it'd be like a little bit less just, me making decisions cuz I do think there's a decision fatigue component. Uh but it's and I have a hard I like to move so much and like some of it is just like being okay with like lower intensity stuff and sometimes I think it holds me back but dude, I got back into sprinting and until I sprained my ankle like I was really loving like 2 days of go sprint and they were like 15 to 20 minute sessions. They were like, hey, run a 400 or an 800, power skips and some hops, and then like run like 6 to 8 build-ups. And like that was it. And like that's not a whole lot of volume, but it's also if you're actually trying, like that'll cook you, right? And but then like yeah, like I just like to lift and um I think that's one of the biggest and hardest things for people to navigate is like how much do I need to rest to get to feel good to train well. And I also think that varies too because like you probably should train. You got kids who are playing football, they're like they need to perform under fatigue, right? Like a sprinter, it's different. Like you're trying to be ready to go for like 100-meter dash, and we want to try to dissipate fatigue as much as possible. But also training should build you so like you can perform pretty well at baseline, right? And I'm just always curious, and like the fact that you will have like just a week where you don't get shit done and you don't like beat the crap out of yourself is probably a really good mindset thing because it's like, yeah, I just didn't get it. Whereas like me, I would be like, you're a piece of shit. And maybe you do that too.
yeah, to me, it's if progressive overload was as finicky as we thought it was, then the most jacked, intense people on this planet would be grandpas and grandmas.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work that way. And if it was truly, um, rate of decay, we know that we've studied this, right? We know that strength hangs around 30 days plus or minus a few
Yeah.
days within 10% of whatever.
Yeah.
Um, you have the science. I have the personal experience, right? Some of my all-time my lifetime PR on deadlift came 3 months after we moved, and I didn't have a gym because my gym is my garage, and that's where all of our crap was. And then one day at Warwick, one of the dudes said, "Hey, I'll challenge you to a deadlift," and I said, "Okay." Like, how does that work? Well, maybe because progressive overload isn't exactly as tightly wound as we think it is. Maybe there is a little bit of freedom. Maybe there's
Yeah.
more that goes into it than just what you're doing in your training. So there's that. And then there's also, I think I have the privilege of, I'm a strength coach, but I am also an assistant football coach, air quotes, meaning I am with this team year round.
Mm-hmm.
So I travel with them to games. I am a part of that team. And so I see that these kids aren't getting weaker through their season and our lifting because it's high school sports is almost non-existent. There's weeks where we just, hey, we don't have time, we can't lift. There's
Mm-hmm.
weeks where, hey, we have one 30-minute period and it's the Monday after a game, so most of our guys are still a little banged up. We can't give too much, but these kids aren't falling apart. And
Yeah.
so, okay, they just spent 10, 12 weeks not training hard, but then we take a couple weeks off, we come back in, we test. Their numbers aren't too far off from where
Yeah.
we started the season. So I do have that in front of me, and it's like, okay, you can take more time than you think off, so
Yeah.
long as your overarching training plan, as long as you're just not being a piece of shit for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you
Yeah.
can take a couple weeks off. And I believe most of your performance decreases is simply because it feels harder.
Yeah.
People will come back after a week of vacation and they say, "Oh, it just feels harder."
Yeah.
But did you do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm weaker because it feels harder. I doubt it.
Yeah.
You did what you did 2 weeks ago, so you're not actually weaker. It just feels harder.
People are really, it's the feeling aspect of it is really hard because it's like we're not good at interpreting our feelings. And usually we move forward pretty quickly through them, right? Like there's a Dan Harris who's like the 10% happier meditation guy. Like he said a couple weeks ago, it was like it was a quick, and we know this. It was like, if you just observe what you're feeling for a little bit, it usually like dissipates, right? It's just like what it is like you're feeling something and you're turning away from what you feel over and over again, so you don't actually allow the thing to move through you. And like that's the wildness of the human experience, right? Is like once you allow yourself to just feel what you feel, you can navigate it, right? And I also, this is why I also like dude, just a variety of the one guy I was telling you about this morning, like he's firefighter, he's got 2 kids, he's busy, he's also really hard on himself. Like he's like he's really hard on himself, and I'm like, dude, like, you know, and he's the one who's like, I feel like I should be doing a bunch of stuff. I'm like, well, pick like the 10 things you want to do, but also, man, just write 1 through 20 on a piece of paper, and then write squat, bench, deadlift, press, and maybe some variations on the top. And like, let's just start setting rep PRs at a variety of places, and you just fucking hit all those things over the course of time, and you're probably gonna make progress if you have those things, and you're like, yeah, okay, what's my 12 rep max right now, like, and then you're like, okay, what's my 7 rep max? Okay, like, yes, do you have to hit 5x5 every once in a while? Maybe, I don't know. Like, I really don't know if like hitting 5x5 at 75% is a requisite for anything ever, right? But like, you got to figure out ways to push yourself, right? And but also have fun and like not get too much of a shit when you don't have a great day, right? And like that's the hard part of a lot of this stuff too. So, all right, man, we did an hour. You got any last words of wisdom, or did any of this conversation bring up anything good for you that you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so. This is what I've spent a great deal of my time focusing on. Is and I think this is more American, but I think this is just permeating the world. Is we have just totally let go of myth, of fairy tale, of make believe, of play, and we have just made everything literal.
Yeah.
And you turn on social media and everyone is posting a study with the results. Everyone is talking with certainty. And if we look back through antiquity, whether we're talking of the Greek gods or the fairy tales that kids were told, myth permeated their life in such a transformative way that myth transcends above truth.
Yeah.
Myth doesn't need to have facts. It doesn't need to literally happen. Myth is, okay, where's the Sisyphus in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Sisyphus to me is both a real thing and completely made up. It's
Yeah.
abstract. It's
Yeah.
but it's above literalism and beyond training. We are making our lives so much harder because we think everything must be explained. And if we could just let go of that,
Yeah.
you're going to open yourself to a wider range of experiences. You're not going to be so tightly wound on, well, I must do 5x5 because this is what's going to, and just so one, understand that. Two, you're fortunate if you're a parent, just ensconce yourself in what your young child is
Yeah.
playing, is
Yeah.
reading, is watching. And if you don't, my goodness, pick up Lord of the Rings, pick up Harry Potter,
Yeah.
read of the fairy tales, and then ask yourself, how does this relate to me and to my life? And who cares if there's any literal application? I think, and man, am I often wrong, but I think if more of us did that, we would have so much less angst. We would have so much less need to be certain that we'd start to freaking enjoy life. And as a byproduct, are training a whole hell of a lot more.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny because like every time I watch a Disney movie, I'm like, gosh, this is such a great message. Why don't people ever like internalize this? Right? Like
Yeah.
millions of people are watching these things. It's like, okay, like just internalize, Moana, like, okay, like you got discarded from your parents. You can still find meaning and, and like you can save the village without while still pursuing new pursuits, right? There's just so many lessons. Like people just like, well, it's not real life, so I don't need to learn that lesson. It's like, no, the point is that the story is helping you, right? And the funny thing is like, yeah, you mentioned myth, and I'm with you 100%. Like, but if it's really like, well, if we're certain, we'll have it figured out. But the game always changes, right? Because I always go back to 10, 15 years ago, it's like, yeah, foam rolling ain't doing shit for you. And it's like, okay, so I don't have to do it. But then it's like somebody's like, yeah, foam rolling's not doing what you think. It's like, I know. I don't care. I can foam. I just want to, people just want to do what they want to do. And that's okay, right? Like if foam rolling feels good to you, great. I don't care anymore. Like I just don't, right? Now, is if you're spending 30 minutes rolling around on the foam roller and you're like complaining that you're not getting your bicep curls in and you're getting your squat, then it's like, all right, well then make a choice here, brother. So, dude, it's funny. And the essence of these conversations is just that we're idiots and that we're just we're just talking, which is what I appreciate. And I think like that's what being a human is about, is like having meaningful conversations that aren't about, hey, is a front squat better than a back squat? Because at the end of the day, they're cool. I like them both. Hey, let's just do both, right? Or, let's work on something. So,
Go Google the pale blue dot. Every time I look at
dude,
it,
I have it. I have
yeah,
it on a poster. I need to put it up.
it's just, I mean, man.
Carl
And
Sagan.
I always love your memes where you're so far zoomed out from the earth, and it's like
Yeah.
you are here arguing some fitness nuance, and it's like, you know, it's hilarious because it's true.
Yeah.
I am so microscopic. Why why do I need to be right? Why do I need to be certain? Why does this thing have to be literal? Why can't I just take a deep breath and enjoy the absurdity of it? Enjoy the chaos of it, the randomness of it.
Yeah.
But again, I
Yeah.
think, coming full circle from this hour we touched on earlier, it's super easy. I don't want anyone listening to think that, one, to think I have it all together, or number two, that this is easy to do in practice. I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think the more that you think about it, the more you can start to smile at it, right? And
Yeah.
start to chuckle at yourself. But yeah, it's a hard mountain to climb for sure.
Dude, I appreciate you. Keep doing good work. Where can people find you on Instagram and troll you if desired?
Yeah, Coach underscore M Davis. You can come watch me rant about theology, philosophy, and sometimes fitness.
I love it, dude. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Have a good weekend. Get some ice cream. See
Oh
ya.
yeah. See you,
Peace.
dude.